Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for a new Constitution. I'm creating a Facebook page to talk about the new Constitution I want to create. It's not that I don't like the current U.S. Constitution, but we're not living by it, and it's not holding back the size of government. Government is the government is doing like 10 times the amount that it really allows, the Constitution allows, so we're not really living by the U.S. Constitution. So I want to do a significant better Constitution that limits government, creates more free enterprise, more freedom, more liberty, and a greater limited government, and gives individuals the power to make that happen. It doesn't just rely on a few appointed Supreme Court justices to try to protect the Constitution, but it protects it by a lot of really good clauses in the Constitution. So it does create a competitive governance type of Constitution, which if you have not heard of that, I'm going to explain it to some degree. So let's go over the new Constitution. And again, it's not that I don't love the U.S. Constitution. It's done a lot of really good stuff for our country, for America. It brought up the standard of living, and it's one of the main reasons why the standard of living of people and the liberty of people was so much better than the rest of the world. And it's brought up the standard of living across the whole world. So it's done a tremendous amount of good, but it has grown tremendously over the last 80 to 100 years. And we need to really go back and limit it, and we can do better. So I want to go better in the direction of limited government, greater liberty, more free enterprise, more freedom. But the people who do want more socialism, more government control, they can have it for themselves and the people who join them in their private memberships into their private competitive governances. But it gives people who want to have that limited government that ability to have limited government. So let's go over it and see how my new Constitution would work. First clause, or the first section of clauses, would be citizenship. So I really go through a lot. That's one thing our Constitution is lacking, is more clauses dealing with citizenship. They need to have more defined clauses dealing with citizenship. The birthright citizenship and the issues surrounding that. A lot of unclear clauses right there, because there's not a lot written in there. So I write some really good clauses in there. General laws, dealing with some general stuff in the Constitution. We keep all the liberties. We keep all the Bill of Rights and the like. All those liberties we keep. So you'll see a lot of that in there. The bylaws, dealing with how governments run, and so we have a lot of clauses just dealing with how that's done. Federal, state, and local, dealing with, we are a country of states, and states are a collection of local governments, and where the power lies on all the different issues. So I really give states, federal, and local different powers. So I put a lot of clauses in on that. Original authority, the basic original authority lies with the individual. Then it goes up to some families. Then it goes up to some state governments. State governments create local governments, and state governments create the federal government. And federal government has some authority, some original authority over the federal government, dealing with foreign powers and foreign affairs. So I really put a lot of clauses in on there about where the power lies. Original authority in the federal, state, and local, but also original authority where the power lies in the individual or the government, in the competitive government, or in the monopolized government, or in the individual. So it all starts with the individual, but then we have to yield some to governments to protect our rights overall, but only as much as is necessary. So I put a lot of clauses in to make sure we give enough to government, but also to restrict that government. A lot of clauses once we give government power, the monopolized government power, we put a lot of I put a lot of clauses in there to hold back that power so they cannot abuse that power. Supermajority, I want to go with a 70% supermajority for a monopolized government to do anything or to do most things. They have to have a supermajority. So it's going to limit government just by saying, if you can't get 70% of the representatives to support it, you're not going to do it. It's not legislation. And obviously I have some rules surrounding that and a couple things that must be done because, hey, if 60% says they want it and they can't get it and other people can't get it either, no, then it's left for the individual. But there are a few things that need to be done. We have to have that military. So we do have mechanisms in there, and I have put clauses in there to make sure that can be done. The parent sector board, some people look on the hierarchy and it says they're the greatest power. No, they just have the power to decide how to separate that power. They're constitutionally minded about who has what power. They can't use the power. They just decide who has the power. So they're very constitutionally minded and making sure one sector or one level of government is not usurping the power of another. So they're very, very constitutionally minded, and they do have their own court system for that purpose, and some executive power, some judicial power, some legislative power surrounding that one issue. But they're very, very limited in their power. But their main power is who has the power, making sure the federal's not usurping the states, and the states not usurping the federal. And then we haven't gotten into the sector boards yet, but competitive governance, the monopoly is not usurping the power of the competitive governance or the individual, and the competitive governance is not usurping the power of a correctly authorized monopolized power. So a lot in there. So what is a parent sector board? We'll get into that. The CRA sector board, within their sector, that's a monopolized government over everybody. They only have the power that they really need. And I put a lot of language in there to what power they have. And it's only I send power up there, but then I restrict it tremendously. Now, most of the power is going to be in the competitive regulatory agencies, the competitive governance, where most of the power is going to lie. Now, if you want most of the power to lie in an individual, you can go with the competitive governance that has very little power over you. You just can't create negative externalities and create problems for other people. You can't be harming others. So they have to at least regulate you to the point where you're not harming others. You're not polluting downstream and polluting other people's waters because you think you have the liberty to put bad chemicals in a waterway, in a river. No, because you're harming others. So they have to regulate and govern you to at least to the point where you're not harming others. And I put a lot of regulations in there. So this is where most of the power lies. This is where, if you want standing in a court, these people can really represent you. If things are happening, these are the people that, if anything that the monopolized government wants to do, and they get the proper authorization through the courts and the number of votes to properly give you that power, they have to work through your competitive regulatory agency, and then they will make sure you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, not harming others, making sure you're paying for your police and the like. So there's a lot to it. The rating system is highly important, and there's a lot to it, and you're just gonna have to read through that, but it's huge. It makes the whole system work that much better. It holds people accountable. It takes care of abuse. It takes care of corruption. It informs people. People in the rating systems can have they have very, very much knowledge of what's going on. Nobody can hide things from the rating agencies. Anything a competitive rating agency, competitive government does, they get to look at. So, and they get to inform people. And if your ratings get too low where you're harming people, they can put a stop to it. So the rating system is highly powerful, not nearly as powerful as competitive governance, but it stops the abuse, the corruption, and the harm to others that's outside of who wants to be in the transaction. It deals with taxes. It deals with the tremendous amount of debt that we currently have, which is truly tremendous, and how we're going to deal with that. And I do have a way of dealing with all the debt we have in America, city, state, and federal. Obviously, I don't have all that knowledge, but I have a way of dealing with that. It separates everything out so it can be taken in bits and chunks, and it has a way of dealing with all the debt. Pockets of Freedom, it's a new foreign policy where we create areas of land clearly, legitimately negotiated for, and let people go into this land, become new communities with freedom and liberty, and these are oppressed people from around the world that needs amnesty, and but they go into these new pieces of land that has freedom and liberty. Businesses would want to create businesses there for the labor, and then they will have a market as well, but we can create new lands. It's a new idea. States partial acceptance per sector. So it does this is to help the system get passed in this amendment to get passed in the first place, this Constitution. If states might not want to give up certain authority they have currently right now, let's say over roads or their education or whatever the case may be, that they do have to give over the what the federal government has, the foreign policy, even though they have representation in the government. But anyway, you read that. It's a shorter one, but that's there just to help the system get passed. Okay, the separation of responsibilities and authorities into 30 sectors, which is highly important. So we'll go through the 30 sectors really quickly. 5 in the charity system, which I get rid of welfare. All the helping of the poor through government is going to be done through this. Foreign protection system, I split government into 5 sectors there. Highly important. There's a lot to go over on that. Violent crime mitigation system, again, highly important. I have good hour-long videos, 30-minute videos. I put a lot of videos out there of different lengths, so I can give quick overviews to 30-minute long ones to even hour-long ones on each one of these subjects. Then we have really 30 sectors here. So you got some more sectors here from healthcare and financial, insurance, food, education. Education is huge. Human resources and sales, where we're going to do HR type of rules, labor law, identity, dealing with people's licenses, records, citizenships. That's where the voting is going to be. Highly important. That's ground zero for starting this whole thing. Is each individual joining a personal and business identity sector, CRA, competitive governance, and then everything goes from there. That's ground zero, and that's where a lot of record keeping and citizenship rights and the whole 9 yards start. Environmental law, work safety and disability, transportation, media and communication, land and water, all highly important parts of government and how that's dealt with. So you see all of them right there. Obviously, you probably can't read them all right now, but go to my website, Haley2024.org. You can read down the whole Constitution, all the clauses. I have well over 60 or 70 videos and length, probably between 20 minutes and an hour and 20 minutes each video, really going over every aspect. And that's on my webpage dealing with this issue. So you can find it at Haley2024.org. Now, I think I have on my page, well, go into my website to look at it, but there's links to my website. Facebook's hard to get the full document up there. It's a lot of words. I think it's 13,000 words, if I'm not mistaken, which is like 4 times as long as the U.S. Constitution. But when I separate it into 30 sectors, you have clauses per sector. So I give government power, but then I pull it back, pull it back, pull it back, just because you give government an inch and they take a mile. So we need to give government some authority, but then we need to pull it back and say, you can't do this, can't do this, can't do this, from all of the experience. Now, our founding fathers were excellent, and it propelled our country into a standard of living and prosperity and liberty like no other country ever. It's pulled the whole world up. But in the last 70, 80 years, it has really taken a back seat to growing government. And our debt is highly damaging to us. How much government spending, the percent of GDP controlled by government is well over 40%. Back before 2020, the COVID era, it was 39 to 42%, depending on how you want to count it. Now it jumped probably closer to 50%, and the controls over it, just the regulations around what government doesn't do. The government regulations are quote unquote fascism, if you want to do that word. And in my view, fascism is the strict definition of government control through regulations of businesses. So it's private businesses still, but it's government control, how much government control there is. So I want to limit government. It's a new system. A lot of good ideas in this. Probably about a dozen, if not a couple dozen significant ideas to improve the Constitution are in this one document. Put it all together to make the one Constitution a lot better than our current one, I believe. Even though our current one has dramatically increased world prosperity. So I want to build on what's right and limit government more. Until the next video.